Thank you, Mr. Gage. Before relating to nanotechnology, I'd like to relate to another comment that you made and say that, frankly, in my experience, people are easy, technology is hard, and I think your prospect of a 100-year marriage, that would be the hardest. Let me just see. Okay. I call this big things from small particles. And I'm going to talk to you not about the nanotechnology that most people talk about, which is one day nanotechnology will change everything in the world. I want to talk to you about the nanotechnology of today that is already changing the world. What is nanotechnology? Well, nanotechnology is the science of very, very small things. Things so small, they are measured in nanometers. A nanometer is a billionth of a meter. So just to give you a perspective, if you took a nanoparticle, a typical nanoparticle, and compared it to a soccer ball, that would have the same ratio of size as a soccer ball to the entire planet Earth. And what is extraordinary about nanoparticles, is this working? Yes, I suppose it is that when you reduce particles to the nanoscale, they can acquire extraordinary properties. For example, some materials can become amazingly hard. Other materials, such as metals, when you reduce them to nano size, can lower their melting temperature. And yet other materials, when you reduce them to nano size, can enable you to allow them to pass through the smallest of the body's capillaries and target individual organisms for individual organs for targeted drug delivery systems. These benefits, is it this button or this one? I'm pressing that one each time. This nano controller of mine isn't doing so great. Okay, so I will give you a verbal request to change slides. Please change slides. Okay, so as I said, I want to talk to you about nanotechnology today and what it is doing in today's society. Please, next bullet. See, one day we'll have nano batteries in this thing. These remote controls won't run out of. Today, our company, as well as other companies, are working on nanotechnology for energy conversion. You see, around us, we are surrounded by thermal energy, an endless, boundless source of power. But thermal energy cannot readily be captured and converted. We're all aware that solar energy can be captured and converted, but thermal energy, though our entire Earth, the water around us, the air around us, has an amazing potential for conversion to useful electricity, the limitations are severe today. Low temperature energy conversion is one of tomorrow's most amazing applications that is already showing signs of life in the laboratory today. Solar cells, nano silver conductors today, nanoparticles that enable the conversion of the current generated in a solar cell to be efficiently captured with masking the least amount of sunlight, making solar cells more efficient than they've ever been. That is today made possible by nanoparticles, by nano silver particles. Next. In medicine, as I mentioned, new drug delivery systems are today becoming a reality. The problem in medicine, one of the problems in medicine, is that though many medications are water soluble, there are many compounds, both natural and synthetic, which are not water soluble, which if they could only be delivered to the affected organ, could be extraordinarily powerful catalysts for fighting disease. So the problem is making these particles small enough to go through the bloodstream and not be caught up anywhere in the bloodstream means they have to be several tens of nanometers in size. Now, science is not yet able to engineer all of these molecules from atoms, so that's one method of making nanoparticles by self-assembly, and yet these particles do exist in large size until recently not able to be reduced small enough to make it through all these capillaries to the organs. That today is a reality. And as I said, companies like ours and others are developing nano drug delivery systems that will be able to target diseased organs without all of the side effects of systemic medications of today. Next slide, please. Many coatings, both automotive, industrial, and others, are powerfully influenced by nanoparticles. As I mentioned, nanoparticles can create extraordinarily high abrasion resistance, high optical transparency, very high gloss, and dramatically improve the performance, the life, the reliability, and the energy consumption of everyday machines. The industry I know the most about is the printing industry. And the reason printing is so important for nanotechnology is this, in our lifetimes, is going to be the largest single market for nanotechnology. Now, most people aren't aware that printing is an $800 billion industry. I'll repeat that, $800 billion. And it's an industry that has almost not been affected by digitization or modern technology for that matter. Man has been communicating on paper for 5,000 years and on printed paper for almost 600 years. And despite today's technological innovations, printing has remained essentially unchanged for the past 100 years. It's a mechanical process. You take a printing plate, you smear it with ink, you press it on paper, and duplicate the same image over and over again. And yet today, as we've just heard from Mr. Vestberg, information is changing at computer speeds, on the internet, instantly, and yet printed information can be changed only very slowly. This industry, as all industries that can become digital, will become digital. Printing is certainly no exception. Now, I know many of you are saying to yourselves, oh, printing. Surely in the day of the iPhone, the iPad, surely printing is a thing of the past. It will go away. Well, let me tell you, this printing industry is 40% commercial printing, which means brochures, sell sheets, products that you exchange from hand to hand every day in commerce. This is not going to go away readily, as I said, because paper is intimate. There's a huge difference between having a brochure, a rich color brochure in your hands that you can touch, that you can feel, that you can smell, that you can put in your pocket, that if you get angry, you can tear it up, you can burn it. There's a tremendous emotional connection and psychological dependence that we have on paper. And that's not going to go away in our lifetimes. Also, because it is so huge, at $310 billion, this commercial printing space will take many, many decades to ever be replaced by digital media. And also, again, I'm going to quote you, Mr. Vestberg, the tremendous move to urbanization has impacted a second part of the commercial printing space, which is packaging. You see, packaging is also over $300 billion in size, $300 billion, it's almost impossible to grasp the size of these industries. $300 billion in size. Basically, everything in a supermarket and a drugstore is printed packaging. That, in the foreseeable future, will simply never be replaced by iPhones or iPads, by digital media. You aren't going to buy cornflakes wrapped in some kind of digital package. And because of the shrinking size in families in the world, because of the compelling nature of the internet and the instant on and me society, and because of urbanization, especially in the developing world such as China, where farmers typically, or people who lived in rural communities typically bought their food in an open air market. Now when they move to the city, they buy it in a supermarket. So the growth of packaging outstrips the GDP in all of the developing world. This will continue to grow, and today it's 40% of all printing and will continue to be a major factor. The one part of the printing industry that is going to go away, about 23% of the industry, is publishing. Basically, those printed goods that communicate information, newspapers, magazines, catalogs. Most people today already in the Western world get their news from their iPhones, and newspapers will go away, catalogs will go away, magazines, some will remain, but for the most part will go away. But that is only 20% of the industry, and even that will take not only decades, it'll take generations for it to disappear. So we have this enormous industry which has barely been affected by digitization. Could you go on to the next slide, please? Since we invented digital printing 20 years ago, it produces 1 trillion pages a year, all printed digitally, and yet there are 50 trillion pages a year. Next click, please. Thank you. 50 trillion pages a year printed entirely by the printing industry, and that is the promise for nanotechnology for digitization. My company unveiled a new generation of nanotechnology printing presses. Next slide, please. At a major trade show 5 months ago, so you're getting this news hot off the press, that shook the entire industry and is expected to be the next generation of digital printing. Could I have the next slide, please? It was exposed to 40,000 people at this enormous Olympics of printing called Drupa, and standing room only because it really shook the entire industry. Next, please. This is what it looks like, an enormous digital printing machine, all digital. In the future, this is not an advertisement for my company, this is a statement about where printing is going. All printing will become digital, and nanotechnology at the core of a new generation of printing ink that makes it environmentally friendly, very high speed, and low cost is going to be the key to that industry. So my message to you, ladies and gentlemen, please go on to the next slide and the one after that, because we're behind. My comment to you, ladies and gentlemen, is that everything that can become digital will become digital. There are no exceptions. And today, most industries that are considered to be low-tech are being dramatically affected by high-tech, in particular nanotechnology. The biggest one is the printing industry, and you will see nanotechnology affecting virtually every aspect of our lives, from the way we take medications, to the way we print, to the lifetime of our automobiles, to the way we convert energy from our environment. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all very much. Oh, by the way, sorry, due to the hiccups we had with this, if you really want to learn more about how nanotechnology is going to affect the printing industry, I invite you to our 2:30 session. Thank you very much.